There is a particular kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with the day and everything to do with the long minutes between blowing out the lamp and the first slow grey of dawn. The minutes the voice in your head has been waiting for all day, very patiently. Tonight, I want to tell you about a small inn at the edge of a mountain pass, a wandering swordswoman with a deep red cord at the hilt of her sword, a corridor too long for the night, and an old innkeeper who said 5 words. The story takes place between midnight and the first grey light. It is also, perhaps, about the next sleepless hour of your own life. Her name is Tsubaki. She is a ronin, with no master to return to, the world she trained for already over by the time she turned 20. She walks the old roads of Bakumatsu, Japan with one katana on her left hip, hand bound at the hilt with deep red cord, frayed and re-wrapped many times by her own hands on long, cold nights. She had stopped that evening at a small wooden inn at the edge of a low pass, paper lanterns on either side of a sliding door, a bowl of barley and pickled radish set on a low table, a futon laid out for her on tatami in a small room at the back of the corridor. Outside, the thin late autumn rain had stopped. Inside, the inn was very quiet. She blew out the lamp at the second hour of night. She lay down. She closed her eyes. The voice arrived almost the moment her eyelids closed. It did not begin in the middle. It began at the beginning and worked forward in order, the way a careful clerk might work down a long bill of charges. The day at the river ford, when you were 23. You should have spoken. He died because you did not. She turned onto her side. She listened to the rain that was no longer falling. The boy at the dojo, the year before the domain fell. You said the cruel thing. You meant the cruel thing. You never went back. She turned onto her other side. The old woman at the gate of the burning house. You walked past her. She was old. She could not run. You walked past her. You walked past her. You walked past her. The voice did not raise itself. The voice was very calm. The voice had all night. She opened her eyes in the dark. The ceiling beams above her were old wood, dark with smoke, faintly visible by the strip of pale grey moonlight that came in under the shoji. She watched them. They did not move. The voice continued. The road across the marsh, after the campaign. You took the easier path. The men with you did not. You knew. You knew. You knew. After the 8th or 9th charge, she rose. She did not light the lamp. She lifted the saya from beside the futon, slipped it through her sash with a careful hand, and slid the shoji open just wide enough to step through. The corridor of the inn was lit by a single iron lantern set in an alcove at the far end, a small flame inside a paper cylinder, throwing a long, thin glow down the wood of the floor. The corridor smelled of cedar and faint smoke. There was no other light, no other sound. The other rooms held people sleeping. The night held everyone but her. She walked. The corridor was longer than it had been by daylight. She did not think this was unusual. Corridors are always longer at the 3rd hour of night. She walked from her room toward the lantern at the far end and back again, then again. Her feet made no sound on the boards. The voice walked with her. The temple in the second autumn. The girl in the rain. You could have stopped. you did not. She walked the corridor 7 times in each direction. She lost count after the 14th pass. The flame in the lantern at the alcove did not move. Somewhere between one of the passes and the next, she became aware that there was a second figure standing at the alcove end of the corridor. An old man in a faded indigo robe, white hair tied loosely back, a small clay teapot held in both hands. He had not been there a moment ago. He had been there, perhaps, the whole time. She could not tell. The lantern light fell short of his face. He did not move. He did not greet her. He waited until she had walked the last of her passes and had come to a stop a few paces from him. She was prepared, in the small, private way that people are prepared for such things, for him to ask what was wrong. She was prepared to say nothing. She was prepared, if pressed, to say only that she could not sleep. He did not ask. He poured a small clay cup of tea from the small clay pot. He held the cup out to her in both hands, with the small, precise bow of a man who has spent his life serving travellers in silence at the 3rd hour of night. She took the cup. She did not drink yet. She held it. The steam rose against her face. He looked at her then. Not at the scar over her left eye, which is what most people who look at her seem unable to avoid. Not at the deep red cord at the hilt of the katana at her left hip. He looked at her in the way a person looks at a thing they have been seeing all their life, very plainly. He said, in a voice as low and unhurried as the corridor itself, "You carry it well." He bowed his head slightly. He turned, with a small clay teapot in both hands. He went into the small room behind the alcove and slid the shoji shut behind him. She stood in the corridor with a small clay cup of tea in both hands, and the steam rising against her face, and the long, thin glow of the lantern falling on the cedar floor in front of her bare feet. She had not, until that moment, known that she was carrying anything. 5 words, from a stranger she would never see again, had located in her a weight she had been holding so long and so habitually that it had stopped being a weight in her own awareness, had stopped being a thing she was carrying, and had become, instead, the shape of her body. The voice in her head, which had been working its long, careful bill of charges for hours, had stopped mid-sentence, as if someone had rested a small open hand on its shoulder. The voice had not, after all, needed an answer. The voice had not needed argument. The voice had not, in some deep and honest way, even needed forgiveness. The voice had only needed a witness, someone outside her own head who could see what she was carrying and could say, in 5 small words, "I see it. You are carrying it. You are carrying it well." That was all. That had always been all. The judgment she had been waiting for, all those long minutes between blowing out the lamp and the first grey of dawn, had not been the judgment of her own old voice. The judgment she had been waiting for was the gentler, harder one, the one that says, "I see what you are carrying, and I am not going to ask you to put it down, and I am not going to pretend it isn't there." She drank the tea. She walked back to her room. She lay down on the futon in the dark, with the cup still warm against her chest. She slept. The voice in your own head feeds on argument, but it also feeds on solitude. It works hardest in the long minutes after you blow out the lamp, when there is no one in the room except the 2 of you. You, and the careful clerk in your skull who has been waiting all day to read out the bill. You cannot, by yourself, talk it out of doing this. What it cannot, in the end, withstand is a witness, even a stranger, even 5 words. If you can find such a person, however rare, however briefly, sit with them. Take the small cup of tea. Let the words land. If you cannot, then tonight, before you sleep, do for someone else what no one has yet done for you. Tell a friend, an old voice on a phone line, a quiet stranger you barely know, I see what you are carrying. You are carrying it well. Let those 5 words go into the world. Let them eventually find their way back. That is all the practice is tonight. Witness, the medicine. Good night.